Hello everyone. In this session we are going to understand the concept of static keyword, another very important concept. This static can be used for the member variables or the methods of the class, and whenever we create a static field, static method or a static variable, that particular thing belongs to the class itself, the type itself. It does not belong to any object. And what I mean by that, let us understand this concept by taking an example. So let us take an example of a student class. Let us create a student class which will have the variables like student name and student age and student grade, like first grade, second grade. And also let us create a simple method which will display the details of the student, like student Ram is of 6 years old and he's in the first grade, likewise. Okay, simple. So let's begin by creating a string name, and I'm going to initially say just ABC, and we can change the name whenever we create the object of the class. And let me create a byte for age, say 6 years, and let me create another string for grade. So let me call it as a first grade. Okay, simple, 3 variables, and a method to display the student details. So public void and display details. So this method is simply going to display the details of the student. So let's take a sys out and show student name is 6 years old and is in first grade. So in this case it's going to show student ABC is 6 years old and in first grade. Simple, 3 simple variables and a simple method. Now let us create another class with a main method. Let us call it as static main, and let's have a main method in that. So let me select this checkbox over here. Now inside the main method of this class, let us create 2 objects of static keyword class. Let's create 2 objects. So object 1 is sk1 is equal to new static keyword. That's how we create the object. And second object is sk2 is equal to new static keyword. Okay, and now with respect to the sk1 and sk2 objects, let us assign the name and age and grade of the student, and let's call the methods. And that is what we have done so far. Simple. So age of the student, let me assign for the first student as the 7, and sk1 dot grade as the second grade, and sk1 dot the name as Rob, and again for the student 2, sk2 dot age, let me call it as 8, and sk2 dot grade, say third grade, and sk2 dot name, let me call it as Shyam. Okay, 2 students, Rob and Shyam, in the 7th and 8th age and 2nd and 3rd grade. Now with respect to this sk1 and sk2, let us call the method display details. Okay, so sk1 display details and sk2 display details. So same thing that we have done in the previous examples also. Nothing new, nothing different so far. So when we execute this program, what it is going to show, it's going to simply display the details of the Rob and Shyam. So Rob is 7 years old and is in 2nd grade, and student Shyam is 8 years old and is in 3rd grade. Same information which we are trying to display from this method over here. Okay, now let's do one thing. Let us change the name of the student to static. You know, this string variable, let us change it to static. So instead of just normal, let us make it static string name. 2 other variables we are going to keep it same, the age and grade. Let's just change the name to static, and let us go back to our main method and try to run it again. Okay, we didn't do any other changes in the class. Okay, just change the name in the main class to static, and then we are going to run this main method. See what it is going to do. By that simple change, when we display these methods with respect to sk1 and sk2, it is saying that student Sham is 7 years old and student Sham is 8 years old. So what's happening over here? This Rob is getting override with the name Sham over here. What does this indicates is, as soon as you make a member as a static, that belongs to the class, it does not belong to the object. So any change that you make to that variable, that change is available to all the objects. So static members can be used across or can be shared across multiple objects. Whichever variable you make it as static, that can be shared among multiple objects. They no longer belong to the object now. This name is no longer belong to the object. This yellow underline over here is simply saying the same thing. It's a warning. If you take your cursor on that, it is saying that the static field, static keyword dot name, should be accessed in a static way. Again, another concept. Accessing a variable or a method in the static way, in the sense, to access the static variable or a static member from a class, you no need to create object of that class. You can access it in a static way, in the sense, just by using the name of the class you can access it. See what I'm doing over here? They no longer belong to the object, so no need to create the object to access this name and access this name over here, because they belong to the class itself, they belong to the type itself. And now it makes sense. Now when we run this program again, perfectly makes sense. We are updating the name to Sham, so when we display the details, it is going to say Sham is 7 years and Sham is 8 years, because now name is getting accessed with the class. It's a static member. So when to use static? Whenever we want to share a variable across multiple objects. In that case, we want to create it as static. Another concept, to access a static method or a static variable, we no need to create the object. We can access it directly using the name of the class. So what I mean by that is, if I create a method, something like public static void do this, just for example, let me write something like do this executed. Now to access this static method, we no need to create the object. We can directly access it by using the name of the class. So name of the class and this do this method. And similarly, if you want to do it for the second object also. So a static member, two concepts are important. A static member, though it be a variable or though it be a method, can be accessed directly by using the class name. That is called as using the members in a static way, calling a method or calling a variable in a static way, because anyways they belong to the class, they does not belong to object. That is the first concept. Second concept is, the value of static variables is shared across multiple objects. So whatever number of objects you create for a particular class, if you change the value of a particular static variable of that class, that changed value is available to all the objects. Likewise, when I change the name, now that new name is available to all the objects sk1 and sk2, and that's how they are displaying Sham in both the cases.